In this video, we will discuss the power and role of the evaluand in the M&E context. In the process of evaluation of a set of projects, we need to begin with the planning stage to formulate a systematic framework. However, prior to the planning stage, it is imperative for us to identify the evaluand for the investigation. Let us first understand what we even mean by the term. Evaluand can simply be understood as the entity that is being evaluated. We must keep in mind to choose an evaluand that is easier to understand and derive the underlying information through the evaluation process. Identifying or establishing the evaluand will depend on the nature of the program. Before beginning the planning stage, an initial portrayal of the evaluand is required to determine its nature, such as being descriptive or graphic or both, static or dynamic or both. This is necessary as it will allow us to portray the evaluand determined by the nature of the investigation and the evaluation of the program. In evaluation, the values are used to show what we want or what we want to find out about a program based on our concerns. The values have to be negotiated at every step of an evaluation, depending on their type, such as scientific, political, professional values, etc. Since the process of evaluation itself is an inherently value-driven exercise, the context and values in an evaluation are interrelated as both inform one another. Values are not rigid, due to which they are negotiable and subjective to the program. However, these values are identified based on the context of evaluation and the concerned stakeholders. So, figuring out who the stakeholders are in an evaluation is important because it helps us understand the values of each stakeholder evaluation and the program as a whole. However, before we proceed further, we need to consider three questions. Number 1, whose values? Number 2, what values? And number 3, how to value? Now let's understand what it means when considering the aforementioned questions in the evaluation process. In evaluation, there will be different players who value different things. These are the stakeholders who will vary from one program to another, but mostly include the government, donors, funders, program team, as well as the community. For your understanding, we have classified the factors to understand the stakeholders on the right side. The figure classifies the factors such as who makes the decisions and how they are made, who is affected by the evaluation, and who intends to use the evaluation information. Apart from these factors, stakeholders may also be understood as primary stakeholders and interested stakeholders. We can also understand them through the power interest matrix. This matrix helps us to map stakeholder interest with power, revealing the dynamics that may lead to a certain group's values being considered more important than others. It is important to remember that even an evaluator had values that they knowingly or unknowingly engaged in during an evaluation. As it is explained with the help of the figure, it is important to be cognizant of one's own values as an evaluator to keep the interest of the stakeholders and manage the information. Now that we have gone through the importance of stakeholders' values and the factors to understand the types of stakeholders, we can now move towards understanding the next question, which is, what values? Values that are identified as important depend on the evaluation approach undertaken for the program. Approaches can be understood in the form of a tree with 4 branches, which represent 4 paradigms or approaches to evaluation. Now let's understand what these 4 different paradigms are. The first paradigm, the positivist approach, focuses primarily on quantitative designs and data, therefore giving preference to objectivity. The second paradigm, pragmatic evaluation, focuses on data that would be useful for stakeholders and usually uses mixed methods. The next paradigm, the constructivist approach, focuses on identifying multiple values and perspectives through primarily qualitative methods. And lastly, the transformative approach focuses on the viewpoints of marginalized groups and aims to further social justice, mostly employing mixed methods. We can also employ the values depending on the criteria for the taken up evaluation program. The most common criteria employed is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development criteria, popularly known as the OECD DAC criteria. For your understanding, we have prepared a table of the determinants used in the OECD DAC criteria to evaluate a program on the basis of 6 factors, namely relevance, coherence, effectiveness, efficiency, impact, and sustainability. Let us take a look at the third aspect, which is how to value. On both sides of the stakeholders and the evaluator, it is a given that they hold subjective values and biases irrespective of each other. As such, it is very important for an evaluator to be mindful of one's position in the evaluation exercise. This is known as reflexivity. For an evaluator, one needs to acknowledge and incorporate differing perspectives and experience of individuals and communities. The issues of systemic power dynamics cannot be neglected, especially when dealing with sensitive contexts or marginalized communities, such as children, women, SC/ST communities, and racial minorities. As a result, one needs to develop an intersectional understanding of the evaluant and surrounding context, along with the awareness of one's own positionality. To understand the context of the values better, we need to dive into the concepts and need for intersectionality. To do an evaluation, we need to understand the context of the evaluation in the first place. But what is the need for context in evaluation? Before we do that, we shall define what context even means in the first place. It is defined as the setting within which the evaluant and thus the evaluation are situated. Context is the site, location, environment, or milieu for a given evaluant. They identify 5 specific dimensions to context in evaluation: demographic characteristics of the setting, material and economic features, institutional and organizational climate, interpersonal dimensions or typical means of interaction and norms, and finally, political dynamics of the setting, issues, and interests. In evaluation of a program, context is important as it brings the different values which were important to guide the evaluation process and bring out the different value perspectives of the stakeholders and any additional factors for the study. Context can help us understand the goals and unique characteristics of the program participants, any environmental, social, and cultural factors that may influence the outcomes, and any existing resources as well as constraints that may impact the implementation and effectiveness of the program. Culture is very important to the evaluation process. How, you may ask? Culture is a set of socially transmitted and learned behavior patterns and all other products of human work and thought that characterize the functioning of a particular population, profession, organization, or community. The process of information exchange, interpretation, and application of knowledge are influenced by the cultures of the participants, including the evaluators. Kirkhardt urged evaluators to turn their attention to culture, stating that multicultural influences shape and are shaped by their work. According to her, there are several ways that culture can affect evaluation, such as understanding the different goals and values of different cultures and how these can impact the way stakeholders perceive and understand the differences. This ensures that they are considered when developing the plans and framework. Cultures have different criteria for success, and these can affect how the stakeholders perceive the success of an evaluation. For instance, some cultures may place more value in individual achievements, while others may prioritize collective outcomes. The language used in evaluation can impact how the stakeholders understand and interpret the evaluation results. Cultural factors also affect the trust and credibility of the evaluators and outcomes. Evaluators need to be aware of the cultural differences and ensure that they build trust and credibility with all stakeholders in an appropriate manner. These are the reasons why cross-cultural evaluation models and practices have become important for the long run in the evaluation process. What do we mean by the term intersectionality? Simply put, intersectionality is understanding how aspects of an individual's or community's social and political identities combine to create different modes of discrimination and privilege. Let us look at the example given by Crenshaw. For instance, a black woman would face multiple types of discrimination based on different intersections or overlaps in terms of her identity. In case she is gay, she would face discrimination at all intersections that her identity encompasses. This can be understood with the help of the figure on the right. Hence, it is extremely important that evaluations are intersectional, especially when the existing power structure may put communities at a disadvantage. It encompasses several elements for analysis: financial, economic, social, and environmental. Evaluating sustainability provides valuable insight into the continuation of an intervention's net benefits in the medium to longer term. It ensures long-term impact as it focuses on the ability of the program to continue producing positive outcomes and impacts over time. It enhances accountability as it ensures that interventions and programs are designed and implemented with a long-term impact in mind, and if they have the necessary resources for the desired outcomes. It promotes adaptive management, which includes understanding the political, social, economic, and environmental factors that may impact the program in the longer term.